Hello, I'm your dragon writer, Ricardo Chévere, author of Dragons, the fantasy adventure novel about the ever-raging war between human mages and the dragons of the world. And today, I finally read to you the last part of the first chapter of the first book of the series, Dragons, The Essential Ties. Last I read, Adriana, the mother of Boris, wife of Ivan, looked back as she was knocking hard on the doors of the church, of the temple that they wanted to enter to protect themselves from the dragon that was fighting against these other creatures right in front of it, right in front of the temple. Those other creatures, as she looked back, she recognized them as the very same ones that were at the top of the very building they were about to enter. Those creatures were gargoyles, and the dragon was fighting against those gargoyles. Let's see what happens next and how it ends in this first chapter of Frightening Night. The doors of the church finally opened and they ran inside. An old man in yellow robes assisted them. "Father, there's a dragon outside!" Ivan shouted while giving his son to his wife so he could grab the old man by his arms. "I saw him come to life in the forest today!" Ivan continued with terror in his voice. "But that's not all, Father," interrupted Adriana, holding Boris in her arms and kneeling down on the floor to take a good look at her son and see if he was hurt. She then turned her eyes to the priest and continued, "I saw gargoyles out there too. What is going on?" The priest was about to talk when a gargoyle came crashing in through one of the high windows near the ceiling, falling just a couple of meters away from Adriana and Boris. She immediately picked up Boris and ran up the aisle towards the altar. Ivan tried to follow, but the priest held his arms tightly and pulled him back to him. "Where is the dragon's lair?" the priest shouted. "My family, Father, help me!" Ivan shouted as he tried unsuccessfully to free himself and run after them. But the priest did not let go and once again shouted the same question. "Let me go!" Ivan repeatedly shouted, struggling to get the priest's hands off of him. The gargoyle stood up slowly. It was about 3 meters high and shook off the pieces of glass from the window and the wood pieces of the benches it had broken when it fell. It looked at Ivan and the priest, but did not walk toward them. Instead, it began to sniff something out with the nostrils it had on top of its bird-like beak. Then, it turned its head around as it perceived the source of the scent that called its attention. It looked at Adriana and Boris and began walking toward them. Again, Ivan struggled with the priest to run to his family and defend them, but the priest would not let him go. The gargoyle reached out to Boris with one of his dark, stone-like hands when another gargoyle came crashing through the front doors in a ball of fire. The distraction gave Adriana the chance to escape. She held Boris's hand firmly and ran to the side aisle of the church. The gargoyle noticed her running away and flapped its wings to lift itself from the floor. She ran toward the smashed front doors, but the gargoyle landed right in front of her, blocking her way out, startling her and making her fall to the floor. The gargoyle again reached forward to grab Boris when a funnel of yellow fire came in through the doorway, pushing the gargoyle away and engulfing it in a ball of fire. The gargoyle let out a loud, pain-filled squawk as it burned from the dragon's fire. Adriana stood up and grabbed Boris's hand to look for her husband, but she found him and the priest, both unconscious under the fiery rubble. Again, she heard the dragons roar and more squawks filling the air. There seemed to be more gargoyles outside. She realized she had no time to waste, and with tears in her eyes and despair in her heart, she continued running out of the church, which was now on fire, leaving her husband behind with the priest, assuming he was most likely already dead. Outside, there was fire in the nearby trees and all around the big church. These provided some light for her to see the road ahead. While running, they could still hear the squawking screams of gargoyles on fire and the roaring of the dragon and its fire bursts. But one sound came from too close. It was a gargoyle coming down to seize Adriana. With its talons, it clawed her shoulders and picked her up. She let out a piercing scream of pain as blood spurted from her shoulders. She was desperately still trying to hold her son's hand. Boris didn't let go either and came up off the ground as well with his mother. "Mommy!" he screamed in terror as he looked up. Precisely at that same moment, the dragon flew on top of the gargoyle and grabbed it with its claws, yanking it abruptly, but the gargoyle did not let go of Adriana. Boris, on the other hand, fell from his mother's grasp into the nearby trees. Branches crackled and snapped as he fell through them all the way to the ground. He fell on his back, which took all of the air out of his lungs. The last image Boris saw before losing consciousness was that of a dragon flying above the treetops, still blowing bursts of fire in the darkness of that terrible and frightening night. And there it is, a frightening night. The first chapter of The Essential Ties, the first book of the series Dragons. If this chapter intrigues you and makes you want to know what happens next after that big incident and Boris falling all the way down to the ground and losing consciousness, well, go to dragonsrc.com and there you'll find the links to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, and Trafford, the publishing company. Go to every page and compare prices. Get your copies. Get your copy of Dragons, because I assure you, you're going to enjoy it. It's going to be awesome. And then, once you read them and enjoy them, please go to those same pages and leave your reviews. Let others know how much you enjoyed these books. So, for now, I leave you with what I always say at the end. May you fly on the wings of dragons.